Ungar, I feel somewhat bad for Buffalo Bills fans because I feel like this was their shot to beat the Chiefs in the postseason. We both talked about it. We both liked Buffalo going into the game. And, you know, Buffalo reverted back to, in my opinion, the 6-6 Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Bills that were run under offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey, as opposed to Joe Brady. Very conservative play calling. Josh Allen completed 16 passes behind the line of scrimmage. I thought Buffalo played Kansas City in the first half, though I thought in the second half you could just tell they were scared to death, in my opinion, of giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes.
I don't get it. Like, the Bills all season were so focused on, we've got to get this game out of Kansas City and bring it to Buffalo. That'll make the difference. And yet, they got it in Buffalo. And here we are. Same result. Buffalo is able to beat Kansas City in the regular season. But when it comes to the postseason, they simply can't do it. I'm going to say it. The Kansas City Chiefs are the Buffalo Bills playoff kryptonite. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I did not understand from the Buffalo perspective why they only ran it 12 times with James Cook after they dominated in the run game up to this point. We know their defense defensively, they didn't have a ton of linebackers. They were short-handed there. Obviously, we also saw Travis Kelce dominate early. But even then, you know, I feel like Buffalo for most of the game outplayed Kansas City, and then for whatever reason, and supposedly it was a call on the field by the players, the fake punt to Damar Hamlin felt like it completely flipped the game. Now,
Yeah, that was stupid. I did not get that call at all. You're on your own. I think they were on their own, like, 30-yard line or whatever. Yep. And you go for the fake punt. You don't get it. You give Patrick Mahomes a short field, and it just made no sense.
Now, this is mostly what I wanted to address about in this game was the sequence after, which of course featured the McCall Ardman fumble out of the back of the end zone. There's a lot of conversation about the fact that the rule, which is obviously if an offensive player fumbles the ball out of the back of the end zone, it's a touchback. A lot of the offensive players don't love that rule. And I may be in the minority here, but I actually like the rule, and I actually think the rule makes sense, and I actually think it's fair. No. If you fumble the ball out of the back of the end zone, it's not like it's going, in the sideline in play. It's out of the back of the end zone. It's the same thing where on a kickoff, if it goes out of the back of the end zone, it's a touchback. I think basically if you fumble the ball out of the back of the end zone, it is a turnover. It should be a touchback, and it should be the opposing team's football at the 20-yard line. You have to reward the defense in some capacity. You cannot just put the ball at the 1-yard line or whatever you want to put it, because then there really is no consequence for the offense, in my opinion.
Isn't it ironic that this rule comes up again with the Kansas City Chiefs? It's so ironic because if you go back to, I believe it was the 2020 AFC Divisional Round, in Kansas City, Rashard Higgins is reaching the ball over the goal line. Dan Sorensen hits him right in the head. First of all, that should have been targeting. And it looks like my screen froze again. Oh, there we go.
Keep rolling.
But, so that should have been targeting, but
there is no targeting in the NFL, Josh. You guys are still crying about it 3 years later. You sound like me and what I'm going to say in the Super Bowl, the Eagles don't get it back there. Anyway, regardless, Buffalo then had another opportunity. Josh Allen goes from the 10-yard line to essentially the 20-yard line of Kansas City on a rope to Stephon Diggs, one of the best throws you'll ever see. Unfortunately, Diggs dropped it. It's him right in the hands. I thought Buffalo again. I thought they played up tight in the second half. And you said it. They are Kansas City's kryptonite, or Kansas City is their kryptonite, I should say. Buffalo has their number in the regular season, though they do not in the postseason. And unfortunately for Bills fans, the Chiefs are moving on.
Yes. I'm going to say it, though. I think the Bills' championship window is closed.
So you think it's completely closed?
Yep.
I think as long as they have Josh Allen, it's not going to be completely close.
I do.
Listen. We know what this league's about. It's about quarterbacks, weapons, offensive line, defensive line. Buffalo still has great quarterback. We can all acknowledge Josh Allen is a great quarterback. I'm not here to give Josh Allen any slander. I thought Josh Allen played a really good game. As a matter of fact, I thought he outdueled Mahomes for most of the game. Stephon Diggs, I know they didn't use him that much throughout the rest of the season. Diggs is still a great weapon. Dalton Kincaid is an excellent tight end that's going to be around for years to come. Shakir is a great slot receiver. James Cook, a very good running back. Whether they retain Gabe Davis or not is yet to be seen, but the foundation is still there. I think they definitely need to improve a little bit on the offensive line. Deion Dawkins, good left tackle. They have some good interior players. Mitch Morris at center. I think guard and maybe another right tackle. Defensively, Von Miller was not healthy the whole year. He did make some impact plays in the postseason, especially in that Steeler game. Their secondary is still very good. Hyde and Poyer as well. Tre'Davious White was not in the game. He was injured, obviously. Buffalo still has many pieces. The question is going to be when and if can they get over that Kansas City hump?
I'm wondering something. I heard this the other day. Sean McDermott has gotten them from point A to point B. But
Did I not bring this up a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Buffalo and McDermott? I said they did not look the same after Brian Daboll left. And I said after watching the Cincinnati game that I would have thought about firing Sean McDermott after that game. But to McDermott's credit, I'll say this. He fired Ken Dorsey, which most head coaches would not do during the season. They righted the ship. I think, and I told you this last week, defensive head coaches now can clearly win if you have a great offensive coordinator and a great quarterback. I think McDermott's a very good coach. Unlike last year, I don't feel as bad about the way they watched this year as opposed to last year when Cincinnati just ran up and down the field on them. I would give McDermott one more year, and if it's topsy-turvy again next year, I think you let him go. But I think McDermott, at this point, saved his job with the firing of Dorsey and the transition to Joe Brady.
I heard something interesting the other day on, I think it was Get Up. They were talking about how Sean McDermott, like we were just saying, has been able to get the Bills from point A to point B, but he hasn't been able to get them from point B to point C. And one of them, I forget who it was, mentioned the idea of what if Bill Belichick were to go in?
Oh no.
I'm not saying I agree with I'm not saying I agree with it, but I felt like it was worth mentioning that idea.
Buffalo would not move on McDermott to go get Bill Belichick. I am surely confident in that.
Okay.
Well,
wait, here's an idea. Mike Vrabel is still available.
I would prefer Sean McDermott to Mike Vrabel. I don't think Vrabel's a great coach. I've said it here for the last 2 weeks. I don't think Vrabel's Tennessee teams were that good. I think every single year under McDermott, they've been better teams. The only year they got to the AFC Championship game was because Ryan Tannehill had a career-freaking year, and they ran the ball down Baltimore's throat.
Okay, fair enough. But going back to the idea of Buffalo's window being shut, you look at what's going on in the AFC. Baltimore is still going to be around. Miami, if they can get their stuff together, they're still going to be around. The Chargers, if this Jim Harbaugh news turns out to be true of them bringing him in as their head coach, You've got Justin Herbert. You've got Keenan Allen. You've got, Austin Eckler. You've got Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson. So the Chargers are going to be a factor. Obviously, Kansas City. Joe Burrow is going to come back and be healthy. So there's another team right there. Jacksonville is presumably going to bounce back. Houston is going to be a factor. I would say Indianapolis needs to be mentioned in the conversation. The Browns with a healthy Deshaun Watson, presumably. So with all those teams, I don't know where Buffalo fits into the equation. So as of right now, I'm saying yes, I think the Bills' window is closed.
We got to move on. We got to talk about this game that happened on Saturday night. A game that, oh my God, I can't believe the outcome of this game. Josh, at the start of this season, when I told you that in order to build a roster in the National Football League, there were 3 picks that I would be making, not player, I'm not in a position to start my franchise in the NFL, I would make. And I made the argument to you. My first pick would be a quarterback, and my next pick would be a damn kicker. Because all of these games, not only did the Buffalo game come down to a kick, but Green Bay, I'm sorry, San Francisco, I don't want to hear it. You were pretty much beat. And then Carlson goes on and misses that kick. And Brock Purdy finally went on a game-winning drive. Brock Purdy was by far the worst quarterback. We saw 8 quarterbacks play this week in the National Football League. Out of all 8 of them, San Francisco easily had the worst quarterback on the field, got away with 2 interceptions. One of them should have been a pick at the 6, and Darnell Savage would have caught the ball. You know how I feel about San Francisco. You know I don't like them. Oh my God, they lost Deebo Samuel. Their whole offense is out of whack. They are lucky to win this game. You see it on the screen here. They survived against the Packers because that's exactly what they did. Because they made arguably lucky plays in the second half. And I thought Green Bay outplayed them for 3 3/4 quarters.
So I didn't get to watch a lot of this game because I was working the Monsters game the same night, but I was able to catch like the tail end of the third quarter and all of the fourth quarter. Yeah, Green Bay had this game won, and I don't know what Jordan Love was thinking on that last drive. That is one of the biggest cardinal sins. If you have to escape the pocket like he did, you do not throw it back across your body towards the middle of the field. 99 times out of 100, it is going to get intercepted. And that's exactly what happened. But like we were saying in the first segment with Kansas City being Buffalo's playoff kryptonite, you could say the same thing about San Francisco for Green Bay, because the last few times, including this game, of course, that San Francisco has played Green Bay in the playoffs, San Francisco has walked out with the win.
They did, except the last 2 times I believe were both blowouts, and this one was really close. And as we keep mentioning, Green Bay pretty much had the game won. And I agree with you. Yeah, Jordan Love shouldn't have made that throw, but he's a young quarterback. He did exactly what Brett Favre did in the 2009 NFC Championship game when he was a Viking against the Saints. And, it happens. He's going to learn. I think Green Bay had a great season. But I think the story here that really, a lot of people don't want to talk about is just how bad San Francisco was offensively for most of the game, and especially when Deebo Samuel went out. And their pass rush did not get home to Jordan Love and the Packers a lot. They gave up over 100 yards rushing to Aaron Jones. I'll tell you this, we're about to get into Detroit and Tampa, which I can't wait to dive into. But it makes me feel better if I'm a Lions fan going into San Francisco because I think the Niners are beatable. I don't think that they're the best team in the NFL. I don't think Brock Purdy is this great quarterback. I think he's carried by a great cast, and I think he can make one or two very good throws a game. But there was at least, as I said, 2 or 3 times. It reminds me of the year when the Rams went to the Super Bowl and Matthew Stafford threw that interception to Jaquiski Tart in the NFC Championship game, and he just dropped the ball. Otherwise, the Niners with Jimmy Garoppolo would have gone to the Super Bowl that year. That's what it reminded me of here with Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy had a lot of interceptable balls that just weren't caught, and that's why those defenders play defense and not wide receiver.
Right, I get that. But from what I'm hearing, you feel like Brock Purdy is a product of the parts around him.
Oh, I think you know what I think Brock Purdy is? I think he's Mac Jones with a better arm.
Interesting.
That I really do. And Mac Jones had a successful rookie year in New England. There was reports out there that Kyle Shanahan wanted to go draft Mac Jones, and John Lynch was the one who said, let's go with the upside. Let's go with Trey Lance. Which again, I thought Trey Lance could be better than what he was too coming out of North Dakota State. And the interesting thing is, and this has been buried all week long in the weed. I don't know if you heard about this. Reportedly, San Francisco told Brock Purdy he was going to be the backup this year because they wanted to convince Tom Brady to come out of retirement.
No, I did not hear about this.
Pro Football Focus reported it on Monday, and nobody really wanted to talk about it because all we were talking about is Brock Purdy had a game-winning drive and played the worst game out of any quarterback this whole weekend.
On that note, we'll get into the other games here in a second, but if I had to rank like the top 5 quarterbacks from this weekend, I would say Lamar Jackson was 1. I loved the way Lamar played in that game against Houston. I would say Patrick Mahomes was good, but I wouldn't say he was top 3. I would say Jared Goff was number 2. I would say Baker Mayfield was number 3. And then I would go Jordan Love number 4. And then I would go Patrick Mahomes number 5.
Yeah, that's really hard. I'd have to sit and think about that one. Let's talk about your number 2 quarterback. Let's talk about Jared Goff and the Lions who stave off the Buccaneers 31-23. Okay, I'm going to jump right to this. It is 31-23.
I already know what you're going to go to.
Tampa Bay had just scored a touchdown to get back in this ball game. And yep. I understand there's analytics behind it that, you have to score, and if you get the 2-point conversion, you can win the game on an extra point. And Josh, you know how I think. You know I'm offensively minded. You know how progressive I am when it comes to things like this. But I'm sorry. And I say this about the NBA. When it comes to the playoffs, analytically, the mid-range jumper is not a good shot. But guess what? In the playoffs, it's the best shot. Historically in the NBA, you can look it up. In the NFL playoffs, you can throw the analytics out the window. Take the situation of the game, the momentum with you. Tampa Bay should have absolutely kicked that extra point to make it a 7-point game. Now,
100%.
Now, by the way, I'll say this. If they had a better play call and they got it, and maybe you can talk me in the decision, but I have said this. I said it today on Brandon's World. I'll say it again right here. In my opinion, if I am an offensive coordinator of an NFL team, there is one play in my playbook I will never call, and that play is a goal line fade. I think it is the worst play in football. I think it's low percentage. I think it's a perfect throw and a perfect edge, and you get it maybe 2 times a year. So I would have came up with something different, but that's not the here nor there. What is the here nor there is what people don't want to talk about in this game, and we've talked about Ben Johnson a lot. We think he's going to get a head coaching job. But the Detroit Lions did not really win this game when they had the opportunity to do so. They could have ran the clock out. Instead, they were throwing it. They took a sack. There was incomplete passes. There was a huge drop by Amon-Ra St. Brown. Detroit could not put Tampa away, and they gave Baker Mayfield another opportunity. And Baker Mayfield did what Baker Mayfield always does, which is exactly why the Browns got rid of him. And nobody can see it. I'm here to tell you that is the reason why. Because in the big games and in the big moment when the game's on the line, Baker Mayfield will throw you the football on defense. And if you catch it, that's the season. And that is why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going home, because Baker Mayfield made the worst read and worse than a Brock Purdy read. He made the worst read of the whole weekend and threw it right to the Lions on what, the first or second play of the drive.
It was almost a similar throw to what Jordan Love did when he threw it back across his body. I would say it was
Jordan Love threw it across his body. Baker Mayfield was standing right there in the pocket and threw it to him.
Okay, it looked similar to me. I'd have to go back and see it, but either way, sure, Baker Mayfield made that major mistake and it cost the Buccaneers the game, but you can't deny that Baker Mayfield stepped up to the plate.
No, I can deny it. I thought he played well. I didn't think he played a great game. I thought his best throw of the game was the second quarter throw right before halftime when he hit Mike Evans down on the 1 yard line, and Tampa was able to punch it in, and they made it a 10-10 game at the half. And we both said these Tampa Bay receivers match up very well against these Detroit corners because they don't have one. Detroit found two corners in the garbage can and told them to go start this year because Detroit has to go outscore people. When that game was 10-10, I thought the Lions were in trouble. When it was 17-17 going into the fourth quarter, I thought the Lions were in trouble. Then they gave it to Jahmyr Gibbs, who I don't understand why he didn't get more carries. Again, Detroit pulled away in the fourth quarter, but they could not put Tampa Bay away, and that's what worries me. I know we're going to preview here in about 7 minutes the NFC and AFC championships and give our predictions for the Super Bowl. The Lions, everybody knows I'm rooting for them. I think the whole freaking world is rooting for the Detroit Lions to have their first Super Bowl appearance. Unless you're from San Francisco in franchise history, there's some things that worry me about the Lions. I like Ben Johnson. I don't think he's a great play caller consistently for all games. And Jared Goff needs to have a clean pocket. When Tampa Bay started to get pressure, Goff started to struggle a little bit. But when Jared Goff has a clean pocket and the Lions have just as good of an offensive line as Philly, I would say they're the top two in the National Football League. When Jared time to throw that football, he is lethal. And when Jared Goff is on time and on target, at games looks like a top 5 quarterback. Not just a top 10, top 5 quarterback.
Okay. You said a lot there. Let me just say this. I know what I said a few months back about Jared Goff and the Lions' backup quarterback, Hendon Hooker. But let me just say this. I wouldn't take Jared Goff out of the starting lineup or anything like that because I know what Detroit has done offensively with Jared Goff at the controls. And we can get a little more into this when we preview the NFC Championship game. But I think the Lions need to sprinkle in a little bit of Hendon Hooker. Just a touch. I'm not saying like put him in.
What are we going to do, a Taysom Hill package?
Something like that, yeah. It gives.
That's the worst take I ever heard. You're going to take a top 5 quarterback and put him off the field? What are you doing?
For a play? I'm not saying
what's
for a
he going to do? What is he going to do?
It gives the defense something to think, something else.
Jared Goff can run.
Not as much as
Jared Goff doesn't have mobility, dude. I mean, come on. We're not playing musical chairs.
Dude, I get it, Brandon. I do. But like you look at what Lamar did to the did to the 49ers defense.
Lamar Jackson is a different quarterback than everybody else in the league.
I'm not trying to compare Hendon
You
Hooker.
just said you look at what Lamar Jackson does, so yeah, you are.
You didn't let me finish.
Go on then, finish, because I'm waiting to tear this apart.
You look at what Lamar Jackson did to the 49ers defense. When he took off and ran, they had all kinds of issues with it.
Gee, maybe that's because Lamar runs 4-2.
Okay, fair enough. But go back and watch some of the film from when they faced other mobile quarterbacks. The 49ers defense, kind of like the Browns, struggled.
So by the way, Hooker's not even active. He's not even the backup. It's Teddy Bridgewater.
Well, there goes that take then.
Thank you. What kind of take is that? Oh, do you have anything else to say on this, or can we talk about an actual fast quarterback in Lamar Jackson?
Let's get to Lamar Jackson.
Let's get to Lamar Jackson, because the Texans, your boy, C.J. Stroud, didn't even muster an offensive touchdown. They put up a punt return for a touchdown and a field goal. This game was tied 10-10 at the half. A little bit surprised, in my opinion. But then Baltimore just came out and did what the Ravens do, crush people in the second half. Lamar Jackson proved once again why he should be this year's MVP and nobody else, and it ain't even a discussion. And the Baltimore Ravens, in my opinion, did what they've been showing for the last 2 months. Josh, we've talked about it how many times on this show. They blew out the Lions. They blew out the Niners. They blew out the Seahawks. You name them, outside of the Rams, who gave them a good game in Baltimore.
Don't forget they blew out the Dolphins, too.
They blew out the Dolphins. This team, who I think was, maybe a little rusty after they didn't play the starters against Pittsburgh and were off for a week, came out a little sluggish in the first half. Second half, they did Ravens things. Mike McDonald is probably going to get a head coaching job. He's been that good as a defensive coordinator. But this Baltimore Ravens team, they look scary good. They look as good as my Eagles did last year. Now, whether they can have the Super Bowl success that my Eagles have had and actually, cap it off, unlike what we did against Kansas City, that is to be seen. But I love this Ravens team, and I cannot wait to discuss AFC and NFC Championship and give our Super Bowl picks, because it's going to be fascinating, because I don't know which side I'm leaning towards in this Ravens-Chiefs matchup.
Oh, I know exactly which side I'm leaning towards in this.
You do? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Lamar Jackson is just, I don't get it with him. Like, here's my thing. As a Cleveland Browns fan, I hate the Baltimore Ravens. For me, they are the biggest rival for the Browns. Not the Steelers, not the Bengals. It is the Ravens. But that being said, I love Lamar Jackson. I know I shouldn't, because again, I'm a Browns fan. But when Lamar Jackson is playing, you want to tune in. And you want to see what spectacular play is Lamar Jackson going to make today. Is he going to break away for a 50-yard touchdown run? Is he going to make some crazy jump pass? Is he going to convert a fourth down? Something like that. You want to tune in. But what I think makes this Ravens team so dangerous is that they have finally surrounded Lamar Jackson with good wide receivers and other skill position players. Zay Flowers, excellent draft pick there. Odell Beckham Jr. Isaiah Likely has done a very serviceable job filling in for Mark Andrews.
I would say more than serviceable. He looks like a top tight end in the league to me, what he's doing.
Let me ask you this. Again, we'll get to the AFC Championship in a minute. But do you think that the Ravens, if Mark Andrews is back to full health and able to play.
It sounds like he is.
Okay. Do you think the Ravens will do some 2 tight end sets and have them both out on the field?
Yeah, I mean, they do it anyway. So I think it will certainly add to it. They're going to be in more 11 personnel than 12 personnel, more than likely. But it also will depend on how the game goes.